Hello and welcome to Roundtable. We've all heard warnings about what's going to happen if the world doesn't go green quickly enough. There could be no world tomorrow. But there is a price to be paid right now, a pain to be felt as the price of gas and oil rocket, and there just isn't enough renewable energy to fill the void. If the world were very, very green at this moment, of course, it wouldn't matter what price anyone put on fossil fuels because they would hardly be needed anymore. However, it is worth wondering if the race to renewables can be accelerated enough right now to avoid us having to face this kind of pain every time it gets a little colder. Glad you could join us. I'm David Foster. Well, with the Climate Summit just around the corner, we're going to be asking whether, despite millions and millions of fine words about net zero by 2050, anyone is really thinking about today and ways to solve what you might call the energy gap.
On va tenter de travailler pour faire converger les approches.
We will try to work towards a convergence of approaches between European Union member states. There are measures that can be taken at a national level to try and protect households, families and also companies as much as possible.
Coordonner mieux nos actions sur le plan européen, même s'il s'agira là probablement.
It's very clear that the strategy has to be to invest massively in clean and renewable energy, because this is energy that is reliable, because it is produced in Europe and it is the future.
Well, hopefully the lights are still on and you're able to keep warm wherever you happen to be. With the cold winter months coming, this should make interesting viewing. We go to Bedford first of all. In the UK, Arjun Flora is there, Europe's Director of Energy Finance Studies at the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, which cut short means he knows what he's talking about. Two people in Brussels. First of all, Tara Connolly, Senior Gas Campaigner at Global Witness, and Koen Locquet, Vice President at the Council of European Energy Regulators, currently working with the European Commission. And Koen, I'll ask you about that in just a moment. But Arjun, I want to come to you first of all. We heard there from the President of the European Council, from the President of the European Commission, both of them suggesting that, yes, there are ways of dealing with this, but the green revolution has to go on. Subsidies, but the push to be more environmentally friendly will continue. Is that what's going to happen?
Yes, absolutely, David. Thanks for having me on the show. Really good to hear that coming out of the European Commission. What we're seeing here with the current price crisis shouldn't really detract from the fact that we're going through a global technology-driven disruption to the energy system. And we know that global warming is an issue. It's becoming impossible to argue with the facts about that. And so what we should all be focused on is moving as fast as possible away from fossil fuels and towards cleaner, lower carbon energy economy.
Okay, but if with global warming comes global freezing for an awful lot of people who can't afford their gas bills, is that a price we have to pay?
The issue is our overdependence on gas. I mean, we don't need to use gas to heat our homes, to cook. I mean, I'm sitting right now in a gas-heated home in the UK. The government in the UK has been far too slow to help move the population away from that dependency. And I think that's as much, the problem as shifting our generation away from fossil fuels to
but the fact is you do need it right now because you don't have an alternative to what you're sitting in, a house that is heated by gas. Tara, let me come to you. Too green, too soon. We weren't ready to switch off all the gas boilers, etc., so we had to keep them running. The prices went up and in effect we've sort of shot ourselves in an energy foot.
Well, I'm actually sitting in a house that's heated by a heat pump here in Belgium, so I can tell you that they definitely work. And there are definitely alternatives out there to heat to gas. A lot of the crisis and what we're hearing about at the moment is in the electricity sector. It's hitting people's electricity bills because gas is sort of setting the price, and gas prices have gone crazy. And I'd agree with what Arjun said there, that the underlying problem here is our over-dependence on gas.
Let me clear this one up. Is the only reason that we have a problem with energy prices and supply at the moment is because of the pandemic and because we rely following the pandemic, we've had a massive increase in demand, and also the fact that we rely too much on it. Is there nothing to do with green technology being introduced that may well have hurt the consumer as well?
No, in fact, there's some research that shows that from July to October this year, renewables are actually at an all-time high and helped save Europeans 33 billion euro on their energy bills. So bills would have been even higher if it weren't for renewable energy. So that shows that actually, if we had even more renewable energy and obviously more energy savings, warmer homes, more efficient processes, we would be paying even less. So it absolutely is everything to do with gas. This is not an energy crisis. This is a gas crisis. And for Europe, it's a gas dependency crisis.
Let's go to you in a moment, Koen, but after I read this out from Ellen Wald from the Atlantic Council Global Energy Centre. The transition towards renewable energies is not the only reason for the current energy crunch, but it is a key contributing factor. And more importantly, one which we can correct before power shortages become commonplace. If only we had Ellen Wald on the programme, I could ask what exactly was meant there, but I'm going to ask you what you think was meant.
For me, this crisis is not only it's not a question of security of supply. It's an increase of the prices, and it's not the first time in our recent history. Maybe this time the prices are really increasing to a really high level, and linking this to the energy transition is a shortcut, I think. Anyway, we have to do the energy transition. First of all, we are too dependent of the fossil fuels, so we are not independent, with a lot of danger. And on the other hand, we have the choice, which is not a choice because we have the Paris agreements, and a part of the Paris agreements, we have the environmental challenges, and we are living on this earth, and we have only one earth. If we want to do something, we have to act now in a fast way, and European authorities worked out a plan since years, and now since December, the Green Deal. We have to accelerate the introduction of renewables, and the introduction of renewables will provoke more independency for Europe from fossil fuels. And on the other hand, I think that it will not necessarily increase the prices, but we have to accompany this energy transition with a lot of measures for customers, for the industry, because as you mentioned, not everybody will have the money to buy and to invest in its home. So therefore, the European Commission also installed the Social Climate Fund. And this is a signal. There's a lot of money, but the member states will have to invest also.
Okay. Arjun, let me come to you and repeat what Ellen Wald actually said. Transition to renewables not the only reason, but a key contributing factor. Now, what do you make of that? That because we're going green, we've got an issue.
Yeah, thanks, David. So I really have to push back against this narrative because it's really not true. We have enough gas infrastructure in Europe. The reason we're having this price spike is because of our exposure to global LNG markets. And as you rightly said, after COVID, there's been a big spike in demand. But there's been much more demand from Asia, and that's a result of other factors, a longer winter, unusual weather patterns around the world. There's also less supply coming out of the US, and that's because simply US drillers are under pressure to exercise what's called capital discipline, because historically they've lost investors lots of money, because as soon as the price goes up, they drill, and then the price comes down and they invariably go bankrupt and lose lots of money. So, and there are other factors as well, but it's a global LNG kind of volatility problem.
Okay, let's talk about incentives if we can, whether in fact enough is being done, and this will be for all three of you, enough is being done to encourage either those who produce gas or those who transport gas or those who make sure that it gets to our homes, whether enough is being done to encourage them to go green. I know you give the example, Arjun, of what they're called the gas transmission contractors. Tell us who they are and why there isn't enough incentive for them?
Yeah, so within Europe, every country, well, most countries have a monopoly kind of a transmission system operator. So in the UK, we have National Grid, but these are companies like Snam in Italy, Enagás in Spain, Fluxys in Belgium. And these companies, they own the pipelines, they own the LNG terminals, the regasification terminals, storage facilities, and their job is really to ensure that there is sufficient capacity there. And now the issue is that these companies, in my view, are incentivized in a bad way. I mean, in the past, it made sense when Europe was looking to build more pipelines that these companies would be paid based on how much they invest into the network, which usually means building new pipelines and new terminals. But now we're really in a different phase. We're all in agreement that we need to decarbonize. But these companies, and together they form a body called ENTSO-G in Europe. But they wield huge influence in terms of decision making, which projects go forward for funding. I feel there's a big problem here because on one side we're telling these companies that they need to decarbonize, but on the other side they will promise their shareholders a stable and growing dividend, which is based on increasing their footprint.
Well, they would, wouldn't they? Because that's how they make money. Tara, I saw you nodding in agreement to something that Arjun had said. So the same sort of question to you, but respond in whatever way you want. And Koen, I'll come to you next on that. So you, Tara.
Well, I'd agree that the fossil gas industry has huge power, both in Brussels and also across Europe. And that's a real problem. And that's one of the things that's led to Europe's incredible dependency on gas and on imports. We import 90% of the gas that we consume, and that's gone up since 2000. So we're heading in the wrong direction. And the reality is that if we're going to meet our climate targets, we have to use less gas. That means that we have to stop investing in gas infrastructure, the type of things that Arjun was mentioning. Also at the local level, we may need to consider, decommissioning some of these pipes, and we really need to start switching over to electric sources for transport. Imagine if you were running your car on gas right now, you'd be pretty upset, not just about your home bill, but also about your driving bill. So we need to be switching to electrification for transport, electrification for heating of homes. And we need to be making sure that the electricity that we use is as green as possible. And just something to note is that right now it's affecting people's electricity bills, and that's what people are concerned about, and that's where governments are intervening. But as we're heading into a winter, and that's a winter in all of Northern Hemisphere, and this is a global issue, and we do need to start thinking about the impact that's going to have on people's heating bills, because people do still overwhelmingly in Europe use gas to heat their homes.
Yeah, Koen, it's not going to happen tomorrow, is it? The proper transition to green energy. So how do you make people feel protected as this happens, if, as you and others argue, it is absolutely vital?
I think there's huge work for the public sector, for the governments, because on the basis of our own experience as a regulator, we are monitoring the market, and we see that the customer, in many cases, they do not understand how it works. They are making switches from one supplier to another, and they are going to more expensive contracts. So we have to inform the customer, but the governments have to foresee also the necessary measures and make new technologies affordable for those people, because we have to be aware that it's maybe, and in most cases, it's costly to renovate your house, and not everybody has the necessary money to do that. But if I can come back to your question.
The problem I see here is that the world is coming out, hopefully, from a global pandemic, an economic slowdown. There isn't the amount of money that there might have been before that for governments to cushion the blow, if you like. So in a sense, it could not have come at a worse time. They've got to decide, these various governments, what their priorities are. And why should they listen to you or anybody else who's saying, soften the blow, when in fact you've got schools, you've got health systems, et cetera, all calling for more money?
Because in my view, there is no choice. You can take a risk, you can make a choice if there is a choice. But I think the climate challenge, it's for the upcoming generations. And if we do nothing now, we saw what the weather impact can be this summer in some parts of Europe. In some parts it was the heating was so high, and in other parts of Europe there was too much water. So we have to take care of our planet, and so there is no choice. And it will be costly, but if you do nothing, it will cost also. If you see what the weather impact can be, it costs a lot of money also for the society, for the people, and for the government. So doing nothing is also costly. So there is no choice in my view.
Clara, back to you for a moment, then Arjun, I'll come to you.
Yes, I think the direction of travel is inevitable, and it simply needs to be accelerated. We need to double down on the energy transition. We need to retrofit our homes as quickly as possible. We need to accelerate the build out of renewables. We also need to make sure there's more flexibility in the energy system. That means that we don't always have to go to these really expensive gas peaking plants, they're called, that sometimes we can ask, a factory or something to shut down for a little while, and that will also help keep bills down. And that's really the direction of travel.
But why should I, in little old green old England, pay for all these things when China and India, just to use two examples, are still pumping out all the noxious gases that they want to, and they don't have to pay a penny towards any of this? Well, they do a bit, but nothing like as much as I will if I have to buy one of those heat exchangers.
Well, heat pumps are actually really effective.
They're also pricey.
They're expensive, but that's where governments need to step in and subsidise them the same way that they've subsidised the gas industry for the last, couple, decades.
Okay,
and decades.
so take the money away from the gas industry straight away. What's that going to do to my bills?
Well, in the short term, there's, this crisis did not happen overnight. I mean, Koen referred to this happening before, and in 2014, I think many of your viewers may remember when Russia invaded Ukraine, and there was a very serious crisis then, and a lot of questioning about where Europe gets its gas from. A lot of it comes from Russia, and what we should do about it. Now, at the time, European leaders chose a diversification strategy. That means that they chose, okay, we've got to get our gas from lots of different places, and then we don't need to care so much what the Russians do. And now they're having a little bit of a different conversation, and they are going for more efficiency and more renewables, but we've lost 7 years.
Okay, I get that, but I go back to my question. If you take away the gas subsidies from the big multinationals, which is something you're suggesting, because then that would encourage us to start going or green or a further green. If you take away those subsidies, those companies are going to pass the costs on to their consumers, and therefore my energy bills are going to go up. I'm not going to be very happy about that.
Well, I wouldn't say that your energy bills are going to go up, because, for example, if you run your house on a heat pump, for example, it's actually a lot cheaper than running
No, but if
on
I'm
gas.
still using gas, which I may be,
they're passing the costs on to their shareholders, to be honest, a lot of them. So, or the benefits. I mean, a lot of them have made an absolute fortune in the last couple of months. Households do need to be helped through the transition. There need to be one-stop shops that help guide people. There need to be grants. There need to be subsidies. It needs to be very much supported so that people are able to afford to make that transition. But keeping them where they are, in the future, it'll be people stuck on gas boilers are the ones who are going to be stuck in energy poverty, and those who are off gas boilers are the ones who will have warm, comfortable, affordable homes.
Let's put up some words from Frans Timmermans, European Commission Executive Vice President, who said,
it will blow over, and then it would be a tragedy if in this crunch we would start investing again in coal, which is an energy carrier that has no future and is extremely polluting.
Well, I know you all believe that to be the case, but my question to you, Arjun, is it possible that there will be a rush to start reinvesting in fossil fuels because it's the easy way out?
No is the short answer. I don't think that can happen. Just basically looking at the economics and the trends, and the trends are showing that coal power generation and gas power generation renewables are increasingly undercutting them when it comes to cost. And on top of that, now we have increasing headwinds. We're going to have increased volatility. and we have global climate goals. So I don't see that happening on a sustained basis. And still, if you look at even the last kind of few months, and you compare to 2 years ago, 3 years ago in Europe, we are still down on coal power generation. So I'm not really worried about that. But if I could, David, if you don't mind, I'd like to just come back on to a point you made earlier, which is to do with looking after the poorest and most vulnerable in our society. And I really think that that's something that governments definitely should be doing, and it looks like that they are doing. But when we talk about the energy transition, something which we don't hear enough about is really the opportunity, for democratizing energy, for increasing social equity, and that comes from having zero marginal cost, having lower cost energy, and it also comes from having different ownership models. So moving away from this big centralized incumbent fossil fuel industry and having things like community-owned solar, community-owned renewables, and there are a whole bunch of opportunities, including economic growth, such as the energy efficiency industry. There are whole industries which are just waiting to be kick-started.
And indeed, an awful lot of businesses to be created out of the green revolution. I hope that is the case. Let me ask you, we've got Arjun there talking about wind power, solar power, didn't mention tidal power, but I know it's there as well. What about hydrogen power?
This is one of the priorities for the European Commission, and it's a market they want to develop in Europe. I will not say it will replace in its own the gas, but it will be one of the renewable energies, and it should be developed, and it will also give new opportunities for the gas TSOs. Because for
hydrogen, help us with this one, would you? Because hydrogen is a gas. How can it be a renewable? Is it simply that it is extracted from water and goes back to water?
You have grey hydrogen and you have green hydrogen, even blue. But if we think about hydrogen, I think we have to talk about green hydrogen, which is produced on the basis of renewables. So if you have windmill parks, at some moments you have to stop the windmill parks because the production is too high. If you can connect it with a hydrogen company, and then can produce on the basis of the green electricity hydrogen. And so you have to interlink the different vectors of energy. And this is a new concept, this is a new approach, but I think hydrogen will have his place, but it will not replace the gas. It will be one of the renewables in the new future market.
Okay. Sarah, I'm going to ask you this one because you certainly look a great deal younger than me. In 2050, well, that would see me at a more advanced number of years. Do you think you will see pretty much a green Europe by then? What are we talking about, within 29 years?
I think there's no choice. We have to go for it. We have to do it, and we have to do it faster. There's no alternative. I think everyone has now understood that fossil fuels are destroying the planet. I hope that this crisis has shown people that fossil fuels are also unreliable, that fossil fuels are not cheap. And actually, it is renewable energy and energy savings that are going to be the cornerstones of Europe's energy system, and one that will help us avoid the worst impacts of global warming.
What about on an individual basis? Will people, some people at least, the most vulnerable, no matter what you wish in terms of support for them, will some of them be hurt by this?
I mean, people are already being hurt by the climate crisis, if that's what you're referring to. I mean, Koen referred to flooding across parts of Western Europe, big, huge heat waves across the south. I mean, people are already dying from the climate crisis. People are also dying from energy poverty, from living in homes that are not appropriate. It contributes to respiratory illnesses, which is not great in the middle of at any time, but especially in the middle of a global respiratory pandemic. So we have the solutions to these things and they happen to be the same things, and it makes absolutely no sense for European leaders to do anything except take those subsidies from the fossil fuel industry and give them to the technologies and the industries that we know are the solutions to the many crises that we are experiencing already today.
Okay, be interesting to see if that happens. Arjun, despite the grey hair, I think you're going to be pretty fit and healthy in the year 2050. Do you think you're going to see something that maybe 10 years ago you thought was a far-off dream become reality within the next 25, 30 years?
I think so, David. I mean, if you just look at the progress that's been made, even just in recent years, looking at the cost reduction curves of solar, wind, batteries definitely have come a long way in the last few years. I think really the issue is not, what can we imagine? It's more about how can we manage the decline of the incumbents? Because, I mean, from my perspective, that's really what's been holding us back.
Thank you so much, each and every one of you. Much appreciated. So no red light to green energy. That's been the basis of our programme here today. From me, David Foster, and the Roundtable team, we thank you for watching, wherever you happen to be, and hope you'll do us the honour of doing it once again. See you soon. Bye-bye.